Have you ever felt like your relationship is less about love and more like a battlefield, where every move feels like survival? One wrong word, one misstep, and suddenly, it's an emotional explosion. Relationships can often feel like an intense, unrelenting game of strategy, much like the Hunger Games. But what if this feeling wasn't just a coincidence? What if there's an invisible set of rules driving these emotions, making every interaction feel like a high-stakes competition? Here's the kicker. By the end of this video, you'll uncover how to rewrite the script of your relationships, transforming them into a space of growth and connection instead of emotional warfare. In every relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or platonic, there's often an unspoken power struggle. It's a subtle, ongoing fight for validation, emotional security, and sometimes even control. Conversations turn into strategy sessions, disagreements feel like duels, and even small interactions can seem like calculated moves in a larger game. If you've ever felt like you're constantly navigating an emotional minefield, you're not alone. This experience is universal, driven by the hidden dynamics that most of us don't even realize we're part of. But here's the twist. It's not about you versus them. It's about you both facing a common enemy, the emotional traps that keep you locked in survival mode. Traps like resentment, unmet expectations, and miscommunication are the real culprits. And guess what? These traps aren't unique to your relationship. They're woven into the very fabric of how we interact as human beings. Recognizing them is the first step toward change. Relationships feel like emotional Hunger Games because we unknowingly carry our fears, insecurities, and past emotional wounds into them. These invisible burdens shape our reactions, amplify our frustrations, and fuel the cycle of conflict. But here's the good news. You don't have to keep fighting. There's a way to step out of survival mode and into a partnership built on understanding and mutual growth. By shifting your perspective, you can replace competition with collaboration, fear with love, and resentment with empathy. Ready to find out how? Let's dive deeper. At the heart of these emotional Hunger Games lies a fundamental truth. Every relationship is shaped by the emotional baggage we bring to it. Picture this. Two people come together, each carrying an invisible backpack filled with past experiences, fears, and unspoken expectations. These backpacks are heavy, often stuffed with things like childhood wounds, past heartbreaks, and societal pressures. Now imagine trying to navigate a partnership while carrying all that weight. It's no wonder tensions rise. The emotional games begin when these unspoken burdens collide. For example, let's say one person craves constant reassurance because of past abandonment, while the other values independence due to their own upbringing. What happens? Misunderstandings emerge, and suddenly, every small disagreement feels like a battle. The quest for love and connection turns into a fight for survival, with each person defending their emotional vulnerabilities like a warrior on a battlefield. Here's where it gets tricky. Most of this happens subconsciously. We don't wake up and decide to turn our relationships into competitions, but our minds are hardwired to protect us. This protective instinct often misinterprets a partner's actions as threats, even when they're not. A simple request can feel like a demand. A moment of silence can feel like rejection. And before we know it, we're playing the blame game, trying to prove who's right, instead of focusing on what's important, understanding each other. This dynamic is intensified by something psychologists call projection. Essentially, we see in others what we fear most in ourselves. If you're afraid of being unworthy, you might accuse your partner of not valuing you enough. If you fear failure, you might criticize them for not meeting expectations. These projections create a cycle of defensiveness and blame, where both sides feel attacked and misunderstood. But here's the breakthrough moment. Once you become aware of these patterns, you can start to dismantle them. Imagine recognizing that your partner's need for space isn't about rejection, it's about their own way of coping. Or realizing that your need for constant validation stems from a past that has nothing to do with them. This awareness is the first step to breaking free from the emotional games and creating a relationship where both people feel seen and understood. In the Hunger Games of emotions, the real enemy isn't your partner. It's the unspoken fears and unresolved issues fueling the conflict. By learning to identify these triggers and addressing them with compassion, you can transform your relationship from a battlefield into a safe haven. It's not easy, but it's possible. Are you ready to take the next step? Let's explore how to put these insights into action. So how do we break free from this cycle of emotional warfare? The first step is recognizing the role blame plays in keeping us stuck. Blame is like a mask. It covers up deeper feelings like fear, sadness, or insecurity. When we blame our partner, we're not just pointing fingers. We're protecting ourselves from confronting uncomfortable truths. But here's the catch. Blame doesn't solve problems. It only creates distance. Imagine this. Your partner forgets an important date. Your instinct might be to lash out, saying, "You never care about what's important to me." While it's natural to feel hurt, this response shifts the focus to what they did wrong instead of addressing how you feel. Blame keeps the conversation in the past, focused on who's at fault, rather than moving toward a solution. Instead, try this. Replace blame with vulnerability. Instead of accusing, express your feelings honestly. Say something like, "When the date was forgotten, I felt unimportant. Can we talk about how to prevent this in the future?" Vulnerability is powerful because it invites connection rather than conflict. It shifts the dynamic from me versus you to us versus the problem. Another key to breaking free is learning to manage triggers. Triggers are like landmines in the emotional battlefield. They explode when something reminds us of past pain, even if our partner didn't intend to hurt us. For example, a partner who grew up feeling ignored might react strongly to being interrupted, even if the interruption was unintentional. Recognizing your triggers and your partner's helps you respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Here's a powerful tool to try. When conflict arises, pause and ask yourself, what's this really about? Are you upset because of what just happened, or is it tied to something deeper? Taking a moment to reflect can prevent small disagreements from spiraling into major fights. Another game changer is practicing empathy. Empathy means stepping into your partner's shoes and seeing the situation from their perspective. It's easy to focus on how you feel, but relationships thrive when both people feel understood. The next time conflict arises, ask your partner, "How are you feeling right now?" This simple question can diffuse tension and open the door to meaningful conversation. Remember, breaking free from the blame cycle isn't about ignoring problems or avoiding accountability. It's about shifting your focus from blame to solutions, from winning to understanding, and from fear to connection. The process takes patience and practice, but every small step brings you closer to a healthier, more fulfilling relationship. Ready to dive even deeper? Let's talk about how to rebuild trust and create a foundation of emotional safety in your relationship. Trust, it's the cornerstone of any healthy relationship, yet it's also one of the easiest things to lose and the hardest to rebuild. When blame and emotional games dominate, trust takes a hit. But here's the good news. Trust isn't static. It's a skill, a practice, and most importantly, a choice that both partners can work on together. Let's start with a question. How do you create emotional safety? Emotional safety means your relationship becomes a place where both partners feel secure enough to be vulnerable without fear of judgment or rejection. It's not about avoiding tough conversations, but handling them in a way that strengthens rather than damages your connection. One of the most effective ways to rebuild trust is through consistent actions. Words can only go so far. If trust has been broken, it's essential to show, not just say, that you're committed to change. For example, if your partner feels unheard, make a conscious effort to listen without interrupting. If they've expressed that reliability is an issue, follow through on your promises, no matter how small. Over time, these actions send a clear message: I value you, and I'm working to make this better. But trust isn't just about big gestures. It's also built in the tiny, everyday moments. Think about it. When your partner shares a fear or a dream, do you respond with encouragement or dismissal? Do you notice when they're upset before they even say a word? These small acts of attentiveness create a foundation of safety that helps trust flourish. Another crucial element of rebuilding trust is accountability. When conflict arises, resist the urge to deflect or justify your actions. Instead, own your part in the problem. Saying, "I see how my actions hurt you, and I'm sorry," can be incredibly healing. It's not about taking all the blame, but about showing that you're willing to take responsibility for your role in the dynamic. Rebuilding trust also means giving your partner space to heal. If trust was broken, it's natural for them to feel hesitant or guarded at first. Instead of demanding immediate forgiveness, focus on creating an environment where they feel safe to trust you again. Patience and consistency are your greatest allies here. Now, let's talk about forgiveness, the ultimate trust builder. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing hurtful behavior. It's about letting go of resentment so you can move forward together. If you're the one seeking forgiveness, understand that it's a process, not an instant decision. If you're the one offering forgiveness, remember that it's a gift to yourself as much as to your partner. Trust and emotional safety aren't just for moments of conflict. They're the glue that holds your relationship together in the day-to-day. When both partners feel secure, seen, and valued, there's no need for emotional games or blame. You're on the same team, working toward the same goal: a loving, supportive, and fulfilling connection. A healthy relationship isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about building a connection that can withstand life's inevitable ups and downs. So, how do you ensure your relationship grows stronger over time instead of stagnating or falling apart? First, adopt a growth mindset for your relationship. Just as individuals grow and evolve, so do relationships. Instead of aiming for perfection, focus on progress. Ask yourselves, how can we learn from this experience? Whether it's a disagreement, a shared challenge, or even a joyful milestone, every moment offers an opportunity to deepen your bond. A powerful way to future-proof your relationship is by setting shared goals. These goals can be practical, like saving for a house, or emotional, like improving communication. The key is to work towards something together. Shared goals give you a sense of purpose as a couple and remind you that you're a team, even during tough times. Another important habit is regular check-ins. Think of your relationship like a garden. It needs consistent care and attention to thrive. Set aside time each week to discuss how you're both feeling, what's working, and what needs improvement. These conversations don't have to be heavy or formal. The goal is to stay connected and address issues before they become bigger problems. Now, let's talk about celebrating each other. It's easy to take your partner for granted in the busyness of life, but appreciation is a powerful antidote to resentment and disconnection. Make it a habit to express gratitude for the little things they do, whether it's cooking dinner, supporting your dreams, or simply being there when you need them. Humor and playfulness are also essential. Life can be stressful, and relationships shouldn't add to that stress. Find ways to laugh together, whether it's through inside jokes, shared hobbies, or spontaneous adventures. Playfulness keeps the spark alive and reminds you why you fell in love in the first place. Lastly, invest in self-care and personal growth. A strong relationship is made up of two whole, fulfilled individuals. When you prioritize your mental and emotional well-being, you bring your best self to the relationship. Encourage your partner to do the same and support each other's growth journeys. As we wrap up, let's revisit the core message. Relationships aren't a battlefield where one person wins and the other loses. They're a partnership where both people can thrive. Breaking free from blame, rebuilding trust, and future-proofing your connection takes effort, but the rewards are immeasurable. A deeper bond, greater understanding, and lasting happiness. So what's your next step? Start with one small change, whether it's a heartfelt conversation, a moment of vulnerability, or a commitment to listen more. Each step brings you closer to the relationship you've always wanted. Thank you for joining us today. If this resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe us.